Hi everyone, I'm Siobhan McDonald from Granger Street Studios. Thank you for joining me for our program today. Let's get started. Today, our theme is all about this season. Art about summer captures the vibrancy, heat, and leisure of these precious summer months. Through centuries of art history, creators have celebrated this season by painting sun-drenched beaches, lush landscapes, and colorful botanical displays. Let's explore some of the beauty of summer. Second Story Sunlight is a 1960 oil painting by the American artist Edward Hopper. It shows us two women of different ages on the second-story balcony of a white house. The older woman reads a newspaper while the younger woman sits on the railing. It's in the collection of the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York if you want to take a field trip. Hopper once told someone that it was one of his favorite paintings. And that white hot heat of the sunlight on those houses, I can practically feel the warmth. AgeSpan hosts us every month. Thank you, AgeSpan. They are an agency that serves as a trusted, impartial resource connecting people of all ages and abilities and their caregivers with information, quality services, and vigorous advocacy. And many thanks to Right at Home Boston and North for sponsoring this program. This is just one of the many ways they help people in our community stay connected. Their caregivers can help improve the quality of life wherever you or your loved ones are on life's journey. In 1911, 3 New England states recorded a summer record-breaking temperature of 105 degrees. Clothing styles of the day certainly added to the discomfort. Proper decorum at the time required men to wear jackets, and women wore long-sleeved blouses and ankle-length dresses. That 1911 heat wave lasted 11 days, and it's considered the most deadly weather-related disaster in the history of New England. Up to 2,000 people passed away. Doctors actually wrote prescriptions for ice to help cool babies, the elderly, and those suffering from heat exhaustion. But filling those scripts was another matter. But amidst disasters, there were always heroes, right? And one hero was the mill girl who carried 60 pounds of ice 3 miles twice a day to keep babies alive. The story comes to us from Lawrence, Massachusetts. Heat wave. Imagine at this point 103 degrees Fahrenheit for 9 days straight. Tenements had no ice, no fans. Babies were dying of heat stroke. The Arlington Mill in Lawrence ran day and night. The mill had an ice house. They sold ice for 5 cents a block, but no delivery to the tenements. Too far, too poor. Rosaria Falcone, who was 16, worked 11 hours in the weave room. She lived in a third-floor tenement with 8 people. Her baby brother actually passed away on July 4th from the heat. Well, the story goes that on July 5th, she took her pay, bought a 60-pound block of ice, put it in a wash tub, and then carried it a couple of miles from the mill to her street on her shoulder. The block had melted to 40 pounds by the time she got home. There, she chipped it and put it into cups for each baby. 12 babies on her floor, kept them alive. She did it twice a day, before work and after work, for 9 days. She lost 11 pounds herself with all that walking. On day 10, the city finally opened ice stations, but it was too late for many. When Rosa went back to the mill July 14th, the foreman asked why she was skinny, and then he docked her pay for missing 2 hours on July 5th. She quit in 1912 and went to work in the ice house. Did this really happen? Well, it may have been exaggerated, and we don't have great records to prove that the details are true. But I don't doubt the basic substance of this story, because we all know that the helpers of the world are out there. And sometimes it's the little people who end up making the biggest difference. Yes, the year 1911 was extraordinary for its heat, but Massachusetts actually beat that 1911 temp in 1975 with a temperature of 107 in New Bedford. Wowza. But let's get back to this Edward Hopper painting. Hopper and his wife spent their summers on Cape Cod during this time. And Hopper's wife, Josephine, actually posed for both women in the picture. Her only requirement in their long marriage was that he never use another model than her. And here we can see their beautiful house and studio in Truro on Cape Cod. Josephine Nivison Hopper was an artist in her own right who studied under a famous impressionist, Robert Henri, and she was perhaps most well known for her watercolors. She had exhibited alongside Picasso and Matisse early on, but she eventually set her art career aside to manage her husband's art career. And here is one of her many summer paintings. Summer is ripe with inspiration for artists. Bountiful gardens like this sunflower-filled one by Monet, or this 14th century Italian painting. This is from a Latin manuscript gifted to the King of Naples. And this particular painting depicts a garden in full bloom in Tuscany. It may have been a medicinal garden, typical in medieval times, or perhaps an ornamental garden for relaxing and entertaining guests. And here we have a gorgeous summer garden from India. And you can see here on the top left, the lotus flower, which is considered a sacred flower in India. Now, here are some photos of a garden much closer to us than the ones I showed you in India and Italy. People said that my grandmother, who we called vovó, that's grandma in Portuguese, had a green thumb. She had a tiny yard in New Bedford filled with lily of the valley in the springtime, and then in the summer heat and sun, it really came to life with sweet-smelling rose bushes and the most beautiful blue hydrangea. New Bedford houses are famously neat and the gardens meticulously maintained by the large, mostly Portuguese community. I was always amazed by the brilliant, fluffy blue hydrangeas and other flowers growing all over the city in the summer. Historians believe the plant actually arrived in the U.S. courtesy of immigrants in the Azores. In the 1900s, nearly 250,000 Azoreans, many of them fishermen, came to U.S. cities in Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts, seeking better living conditions. Today, if you visit the South Coast, Martha's Vineyard, or Nantucket, you'll likely see stunning hydrangeas and the immaculate properties and gardens there. And as an adult, I became more aware that this was pretty unique to certain parts of Massachusetts, and in particular New Bedford. I wondered why so many people had these particular flowers. So I mentioned my grandmother, my vovó. She was an immigrant from the Azores, which is an island group in the North Atlantic Ocean, about 930 miles west of mainland Portugal. She came to this country in 1912 when she was 10 years old. A few years ago, I went and visited São Miguel, the island she was from, along with my husband, son, who was named after her, and my daughter-in-law. We wanted to honor this special place that vovó came from, so we brought her picture and visited the beach she would have gone to as a girl and walked the road up to her church in her small fishing village. And then we quickly realized why so many immigrants in the Azores planted hydrangeas in their yards when they moved to America. It must have reminded them of home. The island was covered with them. They lined some of the roads. Everywhere we went, we saw hydrangeas. The 9 volcanic islands that make up the Azores have acidic soil, high in pH and aluminum, which makes the flowers extra blue. Today, they actually function less as decorative garden plants than as structural elements of rural life. They're hedges marking the edges of pastures, and they stabilize roadside slopes, and they provide living boundaries between fields and roads. And they've also proved useful in pasture environments because livestock generally avoid eating them. The leaves and stems contain certain compounds that release a bitter taste in the leaves, so grazing animals avoid the foliage. All this talk about my vovó has me wondering, where did your family come from? If you're watching this program with someone, now is a good time to pause the show so that you can talk about where your family came from. I got the title for this from one of my favorite films, Some Like It Hot. It's a 1959 American crime comedy film starring Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon. Have you seen it? If you haven't, or even if you have, this week might be a great week to watch it again. What a fabulous flick. The film is about two musicians, Curtis and Lemmon, who disguise themselves as women to escape the Chicago mobsters that they witness commit a crime. Some Like It Hot is considered to be one of the greatest films ever made. It received 6 Academy Award nominations. Yeah, some like it hot and some not so much. Let's look at some art about the heat. Here we have an 1866 pastel drawing by Jean-Francois Millet. During the harvest, a peasant's workday could last from the early hours of morning until well into the evening, punctuated only by meal times and a rest from the sun at midday. Here, a man and woman lay in the shade of a haystack. During the winter months he spent at an asylum, Vincent van Gogh had a shortage of subjects for his work. He didn't have the freedom he enjoyed in the past. The weather was too cold to work outdoors, and he didn't have access to models for paintings. So Van Gogh took up copying some of his favorite works by others, which became the primary source of his art during the winter months. He actually did more than 30 copies of works by some of his favorite artists. And about 21 of the works were copies after or inspired by Jean-Francois Millet, like this one you see here. His brother Theo would call the pieces in the series some of his best work. Joseph Chilmonsky was a Polish painter of the realist school. This is one of those paintings that caused an uproar when first exhibited in 1875. The public was indignant that such a painting was shown in an official exhibition. A simple woman with dirty feet was not considered a worthy topic. As we know, tastes change, and it's now one of the most commonly reproduced paintings in Poland. Here we see a young woman resting, stretched, fully in the moment, fascinated by the web of Indian summer. That's that fine shimmering strand of spider silk that's drifting through the air. She's holding it in her hand. She's not thinking about the past or the future, just enjoying a moment of relaxing, leaving her worries to the guard dog that we see in the background. A heat wave is not a good time for physical activity, but it may be a good time to daydream, or it could be a good time to go to the beach. These are all lovely, but what if you live in the city? Things look pretty hot on this rooftop. Saul Kovner was a Russian-born artist who came to New York City in the 1920s. He set up a studio in Central Park West. He captured gentle yet honest scenes in all seasons of urban life, particularly of working class and poor New Yorkers. In 1946, he completed One Summer Night, a richly detailed picture of tenement dwellers seeking refuge from the heat. And here we see another view of a rooftop, this one by Faith Ringgold. Her vehicle of art is the story quilt. Quilts are a traditional American craft associated with women's communal work, but also has roots in African culture. In this image, we see a family enjoying a dinner up on the rooftop, the Tar Beach in New York City. She wrote the story along the edges of the quilt. It became a beautiful picture book. Let's listen to her tell us the story now.
My name is Faith Ringgold, and I wrote Tar Beach, the book, in 1990. I will always remember when the stars fell down around me and lifted me up above the George Washington Bridge. I could see our tiny rooftop with Mommy and Daddy and Mr. and Mrs. Honey, our next door neighbors, still playing cards as if nothing was going on. And BB, my baby brother, lying real still on the mattress, just like I told him to, his eyes like huge floodlights tracking me through the sky. Sleeping on Tar Beach was magical. Lying on the roof in the night with the stars and skyscraper buildings all around me made me feel rich, like I owned all that I could see. The bridge was my most prized possession. Daddy said that the George Washington Bridge is the longest and most beautiful bridge in the world, and that it opened in 1931 on the very day I was born. Daddy worked on that bridge, hoisting cables. Since then, I've wanted that bridge to be mine. Now I have claimed it. All I had to do was fly over it for it to be mine forever. I can wear it like a giant diamond necklace. Or just fly above it and marvel at its sparkling beauty. I can fly. Yes, fly. Me, Cassie Louise Lightfoot, only 8 years old and in the 3rd grade, and I can fly. That means I am free to go wherever I want for the rest of my life. Daddy took me to see the new Union building he is working on. He can walk on steel girders high up in the sky and not fall. They call him the cat. But still he can't join the union because Grandpa wasn't a member. Well, Daddy is going to own that building because I'm going to fly over it and give it to him. Then it won't matter that he's not in their old union or whether he's colored or a half-breed Indian like they say. He'll be rich and won't have to stand on 24-story high girders and look down. He can look at his building going up. And Mommy won't cry all winter when he goes to look for work and doesn't come home. And Mommy can laugh and sleep late like Mrs. Honey. And we can have ice cream every night for dessert. Next, I'm going to fly over the ice cream factory just to make sure we do. Tonight, we're going up to Tar Beach. Mommy is roasting peanuts and frying chicken, and Daddy will bring home a watermelon. Mr. and Mrs. Honey will bring the beer and their old green card table. And then the stars will fall around me, and I will fly to the Union Building. I'll take BB with me. He has threatened to tell Mommy and Daddy if I leave him behind. I have told him it's very easy. Anyone can fly. All you need is somewhere to go that you can't get to any other way. The next thing you know, you're flying among the stars. The end.
Those rooftops must have felt great compared to a steamy tenement. I hope you enjoyed that story. Faith Ringgold lived until age 93, and she made art right until the end of her life. She leaves a huge legacy of stories and art for future generations to enjoy. Moving along, for more than 100 years, people have attempted to fry eggs on sidewalks when the heat goes sky high. But can you really fry an egg on the sidewalk? I looked it up, and well, it is possible under extreme conditions, like, for example, you're doing it on dark asphalt and it's a super hot, over 112-degree day, and you have at least 20 minutes minimum. Frying an egg on the sidewalk could be possible, but it remains a feat more of curiosity than practicality. but we sure can get fried in the heat, and that's how you'll end up if you're not careful. Australian artist Jeremy Purnell said people frying themselves on the beach for a suntan inspired this piece. Newman Rockwell did a lot of summer scenes about the heat. Here are a few of them. And here's another one of my favorites. What's going on in this picture? Well, yes, I am definitely noticing that this boy is looking a little concerned about the fact that his ice cream is melting so quickly. Let's look at a couple of fun facts about the heat. The hottest natural air temperature ever measured on Earth was 134 degrees at Furnace Creek Ranch in Death Valley, California. The Eiffel Tower in Paris can grow up to 6 inches taller during hot summer days because the metal iron expands when it gets hot. A 2003 heat wave turned grapes into raisins before they were picked from the vine. Yeah, some like it hot. Some animals like it hot, like these guys. But lucky them, they have a pool. Or this cute little kangaroo by the side of the water. Here's a cat who really knows how to cool off right in front of the fan. And some more kangaroos on our left and capybaras on the right. I didn't know they all liked watermelon. Time for us to close out with a few gorgeously hot paintings by someone we've already looked at, Edward Hopper. In Morning Sun, we see a woman sitting on a bed facing sunlight coming in from the window. This woman is once again Hopper's wife, Jo, who modeled for almost all of his paintings. At the time of this painting, she was 69 years old, and yet she's really depicted in this youthful form. Here we have Summertime, or work from 1943. And we're going to close out with something we started with. I showed you this painting at the beginning of our program. I just think it's worthy to get to see it one last time. Final thank you to our host, AgeSpan, and our sponsor, Right at Home Boston North. Please reach out to them if you have any questions or we can help you in any way. Stay cool, people, and I'll see you again soon with more art and culture. In the meantime, goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, my friends. See you soon.